Good evening, everybody. Now it's 7 p.m. and it's Conversations with the Jewish Influencers. I'm Rabbi Benzion Laskin, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to our show. And today we have a very special guest on a very special topic. It's a pandemic. It's not easy times for all of us. The kids more than ever at home. Many parents calling me all the time, and Rabbi, we don't know what to do. It's crazy going at home. It's the only profession to be a parent that we don't really study for it. So we not always have the tools really to educate our kids and to give them the best tools. And I think that now more than ever, when the kids are more time at home, we have this amazing opportunity. And today we have a special guest, incredible guest, one of the world leading experts on education, a person who transformed totally the way of education in the United States and around the world. Her book was translated to over 29 languages. It's How to Raise Successful People, one of the biggest best-selling books. Also, her best-selling book, Moonshots in Education. It's Dr. Esther Wojcicki, who created an incredible program of Tract. She's so famous for teaching in a high school class that has changed lives of thousands of kids, inspiring Silicon Valley legends like, for example, Steve Jobs, raising 3 daughters who have each become famously successful. And one thing that connects all of these facts, it's her incredible system, Tract, that her secret for raising successful kids, and we're going to discuss it together. So I'm very happy to have with us Dr. Esther Wojcicki. Esther, thank you so much for being with us.
This is a very special time, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much for this wonderful invitation.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure that so many people are really waiting to hear you, because truly you changed the way of people looking on education, looking on kids. And I think that today this is the most important opportunity for us to use these challenging times, but as a way to influence our kids more than ever. So I want to start our conversation for tonight. And again, I want to everybody, please write in your comments from where you're watching us, and any questions that you have to Dr. Wojcicki, please, we will be happy to answer your questions. I want to start the conversation how it started. You have 3 amazing daughters that each one became incredibly successful. One is Susan Wojcicki, who became the CEO of YouTube. And the other daughter, Anne Wojcicki, she's actually the CEO of 23andMe, one of the most successful and largest high-tech companies. And the third one is a professor of UCSF, Janet Wojcicki. How you started, because you was a young couple with 3 young daughters, and what gave you the tools to do it properly?
Well, thank you for that question. So yes, I was a young mother with 3 children, all born within a 4.5-year period. So I was very busy. And what I wanted is a very different education for my children than I had had growing up. So many of you might relate to the kind of education that I had growing up. My parents were both born in Russia. My mother was from Krasnoyarsk in Siberia, and my father was from Kamenets-Podolsk in the Ukraine. And so they came to the US with a very sort of Russian Jewish philosophy about bringing up children. And for those of you that, remember what your parents and grandparents might have experienced, it was a very top-down, dogmatic way of bringing up children, that the children were never right. They were always supposed to listen and be obedient. And the parents were always right. And the main goal was to always follow the instructions that the parents had. And then the school, whether it was a Jewish school or whether it was the public school, the philosophy was the same in both. And that was that you were to memorize and follow the instructions of the teacher. And if you didn't memorize and you didn't behave, you wouldn't get a good grade. And then you would be punished in some way. Either you couldn't move forward with the class, or, you would be blocked from getting any kind of scholarships or be able to go to college. So the system created a lot of pressure on the student and a lot of pressure on the parents to follow this. And as a young mother, I did not want my children to have the same experience at all. And, I had to put this on the conscious level. And the reason on the conscious level, it's because you instinctively parent the way you were parented, unless it's conscious. And there's actually a book that I just discovered a couple days ago called Conscious Parenting. And the woman that wrote the book also talks about how if you want to change your parenting, it has to be on the conscious level. Otherwise, you'll instinctively do the same thing that your parents did, even though you may not want to do it. So what I did was make sure that my children were empowered. That was the main thing I wanted them to do. I wanted them to learn to be independent thinkers. And you can imagine, that's just the opposite of what my parents wanted. They wanted me to follow what they told me to do all the time. And so that's
So how you was able to do it with your kids? What was the practical way to do it? Because we can believe in it, but
yeah, the practical way. So I decided on my own, I was going to try to teach them whatever I could early on. And one of the things that I started with was, can you teach a small 11-month-old, 12-month-old child to swim? Can you do that? Most people would tell you, no, you can't do that. And I said, well, I know that it's possible. I haven't seen anybody else do it, but I bet it is. So that was just the beginning. And yes, I taught my children. Well, Susan was already 24 months, 2 years, but Janet was 11 months, 12 months, and they both learned to swim. Janet learned to swim before she was actually a year old. And
wow,
people were shocked. And the reason I did it, why was I motivated? Well, I didn't want them to drown, and I had a swimming pool. And you read about bad stories every summer. You read bad stories. And it's like, I didn't want that. No stories from me. If you fall in the pool, you can swim to the side. And so I started with teaching them to swim. Then the other thing, I just wanted them to protect themselves. I wanted to make sure that they never ate anything that, was dangerous. So I taught them to be really careful about what you put in your mouth, including plants. Did you know the number of children that are poisoned each year by eating plants?
that's perfect.
So we had every Sunday we would go to the garden center because we were also buying plants for our garden, and they had a botany lesson. So this is small children who could tell you the botanical names of different plants.
Wow.
Turns out they can do that. So I was always interested in how people learn. And so I just tried it out on my children. And it turned out
successful.
It was very successful. Very successful. They also learned to read very early.
What age?
About 3 or 4. And because, again, the reason was I wanted them to be able to read the street signs. So, the first thing they learned to read, can you guess what it was? The stop sign. It says stop. So I was like, you know what S sounds like? And I would go through the sounds and all the letters. S sounds like, and T sounds like. And so they started to read also the names of the streets. Because I wanted them to know where they are. Like, how do you get from one place to another? So
Amazing.
that was this is a practical thing.
And by the way, did you had any parenting books or anything like this? It was just intuition or mother intuition, how to really raise my kids.
It was just basically mother intuition. The only book that I followed was Dr. Spock. And he was a medical doctor, and he would tell you like what to do if your child had a fever, or what to do if they had diaper rash, or things like that. But in the introduction to the book was the first 2 paragraphs, I think. I felt like this was my answer, because in the beginning of the book, he says to the parents, believe in yourself, trust your instincts. You know your child better than anyone else does. And I thought, he's talking to me. So I believed it.
It's amazing that you're bringing it up, and it's really, when I read your books, and both of them, Munches in Education, incredible book, your first book, and now How to Raise Successful People. And me as a rabbi, when I read your books, I see so much Jewish thought and Torah there. And again, I'm not surprised knowing that your grandfather was a rabbi, Rabbi Avram Subinsky. And you just mentioned about how to believe in yourself. And we're not allowed to wake up in the morning from by Jewish law by not saying the words Modeh, thank you, God, that you brought my soul back. So thank you should be the first word that we should say in the morning with a smile. And then the end is, and how great your faith in me. So just to believe in God is not enough, says Judaism. You need to believe that God believes in you. And if he brings you to this situation or brings you these children, it means he gives you the power to really impact and change. And there is a very powerful idea about Noah, the one that saved the world from the flood. He was a great guy. But it says that, he was a righteous person. But if he would live in the time of Moses, of Abraham, he wouldn't consider so much righteous. And it's very surprising when you read it. And the rabbis explain a very powerful thing. Moses was trying to fight for the nation. Abraham was fighting for the nation, Noah not. He built the ship, he saved himself, but he never was trying to save the people or to convince God to change his decision. And why not? What was stopping him? What was blocking him to be so successful, as righteous as Moses, as Abraham? And it's a very powerful idea of Rabbi Levitsky of Berdichev. He said he was believing in God. He was a righteous person. He saw God, but he didn't believe that God believes in him. He says, I'm a small person. He says, God tell me he want to destroy the world. Okay, he's going to destroy the world. Nothing to do with it. He want me to build a ship. I will build a ship. I'm a small person. I'm nothing. Moses said no. When God's telling to Moses, I'm going to destroy the Jewish nation, Moses saying, 1 second. God could destroy them without telling me? He could. So why he's telling me? Because he believed that I can change. He started to fight with God. He says, delete my name if you're going to delete them. And he get a second chance. So the difference between Moses and between Noah, we had one person who believed that nothing is by mistake. And if you're in the situation, means God believes in you and wants you to do something extraordinary. And Noah didn't believe that God believes in him. And for me, it was a very powerful lesson when I was studying Torah about even believing God is only if you believe that God believes in you. And in your books, I can see it very strongly about how we need to believe in the children, in us, and about the powers. I'm right, Esther?
You are right. So it's that God believes in you, and you need to believe in yourself. That is so important and so powerful, that you can make a difference in this world, and that you can actually make change that needs to be changed. We can repair the world, which is one of the things that we should be thinking about all the time. And I spent a lot of time talking to my children about this philosophy, not necessarily naming it, but it's the way of thinking. It's a way of thinking about everything, the problems in the world, the crisis that we face, that you too have the power to make a difference. And it's your ability to believe in yourself. And do you know most people have problems believing in themselves? And what I'd like to help them do is believe in themselves.
And you was able to do it for thousands of people in your classes because you found it, how it's called, the journalistic,
It's Palo Alto Media Arts Program.
that became world famous, and
Right.
you became the teacher of the year and many awards. So how are you able, as a teacher coming to a class, really bringing your philosophy, but in practical ways? And here comes also the most important, that can, for our parents that listening to us, how we can as parents use it in our daily life.
So one thing I did in my class and that parents can do today in their home, it's part of my acronym trick.
Yeah, let's speak about this.
Number one thing is trust. You have to trust your child, believe that they have the ability to succeed. And when you trust them, they then trust themselves. And that's what I did for my students. So unlike the average teacher who runs in and does things for the kids to make sure the project is successful, I never did that. I tried to support them in doing the project, but themselves. Because when they do it themselves and they see their own power, they then believe in themselves. And once you believe in yourself and once you feel that you're capable, then it carries with you for life. It's not just, for one class that you are in school. It's for the way that you see yourself all the time. So that, I think, made a huge difference. In my classes, I trusted them and respected their ideas. And, a lot of teachers, they never asked students what they think about the class. I always asked, what did you think of this lesson? Or what did you think about how we did this? I always wanted feedback. And just in asking that, the kids feel respected because I want to know their opinion.
100%.
So parents can do the same thing. They can ask kids for their opinion, and instead of dictating and telling the kids what to do all the time, collaborate. That's part of my trick philosophy. Trust and respect them, give them some independence, collaborate with them on decision making, and treat them with kindness. That's what trick stands for.
This is really beautiful. And you was able to really, your system created a possibility for kids to create their own projects, and that you started in your school.
Well, that's right. So what I did is I used journalism, media, as a way for the projects that kids could use. So can 15 and 16-year-olds produce a newspaper that looks like the New York Times?
Wow.
3 sections. So most people would say, no, never going to happen. I just want you to know it did happen over and over and over again, year after year. 15, 16, 17-year-old and 18-year-old kids producing a newspaper, 3 sections, news, opinion, sports, that all, if you looked at it, people would say it looks like the New York Times, but it doesn't say the New York Times at the top. It says the Campanile, which is the name of the student newspaper. And so when kids believe in themselves and believe they can do it, they do it.
Incredible.
And so that's what I used as an opportunity for kids to learn how to believe in themselves. They did newspapers. Pretty soon the program grew. It started with 20 kids, and it grew every year. And today it's got over 700 kids involved in this program.
It is incredible. By the way, we have here a thank you with many thanks for such an interesting meeting from Gothenburg, Sweden. So even in Sweden now, it's very late in Sweden now, but they're watching us. So thank you so much, Ella from Sweden. And I want to continue what you just spoke about. I know in your students, in your classes, you had a very famous, now actually they became famous after they've been in your class, Hollywood artists, actors. I know Steve Jobs was a very happy parent of yours that was very happy of you. If you can a little bit tell us about the stories of the people that became successful and.
So I always wanted my students to become who they wanted to become, pursue the goals and degrees that they wanted to be. Because people would ask me, are you just trying to train journalists? And my answer was no, I'm trying to train citizens for the world, people who can make a change, believe in themselves, repair the world, make a difference.
Exactly.
And so one of those people was Lisa Brennan-Jobs, Steve Jobs' daughter, who turned out to be an author. She's a great author. She lives in New York City, and she wrote a book called, let's see what it was, Small Fry, became a bestseller. And she it was a very good job. She wrote about her life growing up. And I think, while it might have been a little harsh in talking about her dad, she was realistic. And at the end of the book, she forgives him for some of the things that he did that created problems for her. So she's an author. The other one that a lot of people in New York will know, and again, I encourage him to be who he wanted to be, is Jeremy Lin, the basketball player.
Oh.
Linsanity was like a big thing in New York City. Today, he's living in Beijing, where he's playing, basketball in China. But he always wanted to be a basketball player. And so he achieved his goals. He just happens to be a basketball player who knows how to write, because that's what he learned also from me. And then a third famous student, I have a lot of them, but a third one is James Franco, the actor. And, he also learned to write really well. And he believes in this philosophy of education that I used in my classes. And he used those same methods at UCLA in his classes. And he became an outstanding actor and a producer as well. And I think he's producing another film, which should be coming out in 2021. So that's just three people. There's a lot of them.
It is incredible of the impact that you was able to really affect so many people. And now through your books, you're already affecting not only those thousands of your students, but millions of people around the world with, I think, over 29 languages that was translated your book already.
Right.
And what you said about everyone need to find really his mission in life, his musical note that he came to play in this symphony. And I remember when once a person came to me as a rabbi, and he wanted me, Rabbi, change the name of my son. Jewish names has an influence also on the person. And says, what's the problem? Usually you're changing a name or adding a name when, God forbid, person is very sick or there's some big problem. So then says, but what happened? I see a healthy boy. He was 20 years old. So, Rabbi, he has problems in college. He don't study well. He was studying for engineering. I don't know what I want to speak to him. So I asked the father to step out and I asked him, what you want? What's your passion in life? And the boy tells me, Rabbi, I want to be a cook. I'm amazing. I love them. And the father had a dream to be an engineer. He never became. So he thought that the son, and it so often happened in our lives. I told the father, forget about the name. His name is great. Everything is good. Just let the kids to really pursue his dreams. But so often we want our kids to live our dreams and not their dreams, and not letting them really to create what they're really supposed to.
That's absolutely true. That's one of the problems. You need to realize that your children are on their own path. They're like a flower, a tree that's growing, and you are to nurture them and help them become who they are meant to be. And they cannot do things that you were meant to be just because somehow you didn't do them or you wish you would have done them. They have their own opportunity, and that's what we should be doing. And, that's what I did with my daughters, all three of them. They majored in college in whatever they wanted to major in. I never had an impact. And Susan majored in French and English, history and literature. And then she graduated. And then the question was, well, what are you going to do with that now? And she hadn't even thought about that. She said, well, maybe I'll be a teacher. I don't quite really know, you know. But all I know is that like a few months later, she decided she wanted to go to India for a year. And I said, India? Really? Why India? She's like, that's where I want to go. And off she went to India for a year. This was before cell phones, before computers. So the only way I knew how she was every few weeks I would get an aerogram, one of those blue things, remember, I used to write on? Yeah. Then she would send, I'm okay, Mom. And, the rest of it would be sort of blank. But, you have to let your children be who they want to be and support them in their dreams and their goals. And whatever you can do to help them, I think that will make the difference. And they can hopefully have a passion to make the world a better place. Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam, beautiful.
Yes.
One of the main Jewish ideas about fixing the world and bringing light to the world. And I have here, we have many questions, but here's one of them. Rita's asking us what to do if they stop to do what teacher and parents give and confronting you. What we should do. Another Elena Lebedev asking also similar, what to do if they are not interested in reading. When the kid is working with you, it's beautiful, but when we have issues, so what we do?
So I think first of all, what it's like to fight with the teenager. You will never win. So what you want to do, if they don't want to read, I bet they want to read online. That's one thing. Give them an opportunity to explore what they want to read. Back off a little bit and give them an opportunity. Honestly, most of the time when they don't want to do anything, it's because they've been under a lot of pressure for them to do what you want them to do. And a lot of depressed kids, they're depressed because they don't see any way out of doing what they want to do. They only see that if they're going to be happy, they're following your path. And so if you can just back up a little bit, one thing I recommend, and my students recommended, by the way, give them a copy of the book. And then the two of you, parent and child, can talk about this method of parenting. All my students loved it. So just
amazing.
A simple solution.
It is an amazing book, and I recommend highly everybody to read this book, How to Raise Successful People. And by the way, me is also as a dean of a high school, East Academy of Science and Technology. One of the challenges is always to give the tools for the teens to really create and to really create their own. And I know that you was able to create incredible, except with your books, incredible application app. One of the 20 projects that you're doing at the same time, and I'm always amazed by it. And one of the last ones called Tract. And I think it's by teens teaching kids and by them becoming role models for kids. That's one of the amazing ways of really making leaders, is by giving them this tool. So please, if you can tell us about this project and how you came to this project.
So this project is called Tract, Tract, Tract.app. And it's a way, an attempt to empower kids, teenagers, who can create courses, learning for kids that are just a little bit younger, age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, on things that they think are interesting, whatever it is that they think is interesting. And so it empowers the creators and it empowers the user because it's peer-to-peer learning, project-based, and built into it is an opportunity to collaborate. It just started actually in June of this year. And the CEO is one of my former students.
It's amazing. This is really incredible.
His name is Ari Memar. And He remembers my class as a way to be empowered. He and all his friends, he graduated in 2006. And so he wanted to help recreate that experience for kids everywhere, to have the opportunity to learn things created by kids. It's Learning Pass. But then, with the kid-like focus. And they use a lot of YouTube videos, but this is YouTube that you don't have to worry about. This is YouTube that is curated.
Safe.
And then they also make their own videos to help. And then they come up with their own topics.
It's amazing. We can see also the name of the Tract, Tract, that app, so everybody can
see it. And so I have a special just for this group, by the way. Please. That normally what we're doing is charging for it. It charges $49 a month, and it provides a membership for your family and a membership for a family that can't afford it. So it's 2 for 1. But for this group, we have something special, which is it's a year free, no charge at all.
It's incredible.
This is in exchange for, it's very small amount of thing that they would have to do. I just want to get feedback from the parents and from the kids. How did you like it? And that's it. And so if you are interested, you can sign up, and there's this code that you can put in it. And the code is WOJ special, Waj special, all capital letters. And then you get access to it for free for a year.
Waj special, we see it here. This is the code that you can enter.
Right.
And you will receive a 1 year for free in Tract.app. And I'm personally, as the dean of a high school, I want to thank you, because we're thinking all the time what we as a high school, as teachers, what we can give for students to really become creators. Because one of the main ideas in Judaism, God didn't create us as creations. We have the animal world for this. The people was created as creators in the image of God. God is a creator and we're creators. And we're trying in Judaism especially, I think it's very important for us to all the time to impact and to teach our kids from a young age to be leaders. As we say, we shouldn't find ourselves in a situation, but we create the situation. We need to create situations. And what really does it, when the moment you create our teen at the teacher, it's genius. It's amazing. So I know that our students, when we told them about Tract, was so excited and already preparing the new videos that we're going to do about Jewish values and about many exciting things in the app. And I know that also other kids that looking at us and would like to, there is a possibility. It's not easy, but even to become a creator. And I think it will be amazing if more will join.
Yeah, I would love to have Jewish creators, young kids that are creators that want to create anything. If they want to create something about gaming, that's fine too. Want to create something about, Jewish life, or I'm really open, because as I say with everything, they have an opportunity to talk about and create things that they care about. I have things that I cared about, right, 20 years ago and so forth, but now it's their turn. So I give them this opportunity. And yes, I'm very excited to be working with all these young, wonderful Jewish creators.
This is really beautiful. And when I remember my yeshiva, when I was studying in an Orthodox yeshiva to become a rabbi, in a high school, we didn't had classes. We had classes. No, we had classes. We had like 3-4 classes a week. And most of the day, this is the Jewish way of studying. Me and my chavuta, my friend, we were studying together the Gemara, the Talmud, or whatever text it was, together by ourselves. We had a teacher next to us sitting, so we always was able to ask him a question, but it was our project. We were studying. And then we had 3-4 classes a week, or even depend on the age, to have the information and so on. But it was our study. And when I was reading your books and your system, you was creating a yeshiva in a way, just in Palo Alto High School.
It's true. It is absolutely true. Studying. So, while this is great for, the Jewish kids, it's also great for all kids,
Exactly.
all ethnicities, no matter what, Black Lives Matter. We need creators in all these different disciplines.
100%.
And
We all
so,
created an image of God, and
right. And that's right. So, as I said, we only started in June, and then we launched in the middle of October, or I think, sometime in there. And then there were lots of other competing things that were going on at the same time coming out of Washington, D.C. So we didn't get a lot of attention because the attention was all going to someone else. But but now things have calmed down a little bit. And so we're hoping to do more. But so all kids, we need all, it's like the colors of a rainbow. We need the diversity.
so here I'm coming to our coronavirus, COVID. We're all in a different reality. In our high school, for example, we're a small high school, so was able to allow kids to be every day in class. Thank God this year. Many schools not able to do it, and even those that can, even if when you come to the school with a mask and there's so many activities that not able to, and so much Zoom, so much online, what do you suggest? What's your best advice for parents? What to do during this time?
Oh, so the number one thing that parents should do, first of all, is don't be so upset. If they don't memorize for a year, it won't matter. The most important thing a child can learn are social emotional skills and how to cope with the unexpected. And they copy you. And so what you want to do is model that you're thinking about creative solutions. And I can just tell you about what my grandchildren have done. One of them decided he was going to be a chef, and he now bakes bread for the family.
Amazing.
And it's amazing. Yes, it's actually Marco, just so you know. Yes. And
his last project was, I know of Marco, was to create a computer. So now he's becoming a chef.
That's right. Well, he created a computer, then now he's a chef. And so he learned all this. This was like, I don't know, a few months ago. He learned it all by just watching video on YouTube and copying what they did. And it worked out. So that's one. There's another example. So one of my granddaughters decided that she never had time to learn to knit. Knitting was something she could never do because she never had time. And now she's doing knitting all the time. As a matter of fact, she knits hats for everybody, scarves. I don't even know how to knit. That's because I was so busy teaching that I never had a chance to learn. But so this is just an example. There are lots of other things that kids can learn to do, social, emotional skills. And then perhaps another thing you could do is have just a little pod, a few kids you're comfortable with. All the kids need is one or two other kids that they can, play with. They don't need a whole classroom full. So if you're stuck at home and you can't have this incredible school that Rabbi Laskin has where they can all still go to school, you can still organize something so that they have an opportunity to see each other a few times a week, and then perhaps do a Zoom call with each other, kind of like, you do Zoom calls with your friends. Let them do Zoom calls with their friends. Most of the Zoom calls from school today, by the way, I don't know if you've seen them. If you watch, all the kids are muted. You can't say anything. This is hour after hour. You're sitting there not saying anything. That is not the way to learn how to interact.
It's horrible. Actually, I didn't saw it. I'm shocked when I'm here because in our school, I myself teach on Zoom for our high school students, but the whole class is about communication and asking him questions. The moment the kid is muted, he never will have any confidence. We speak about confidence before.
They're all muted. Yeah. So I shouldn't say they all are. There are some schools where they're not.
Yeah,
But
mostly in
the
the public.
majority of schools, the students are muted. And it's because the teacher feels that they have to lecture and have people be quiet. Okay, maybe they're all quiet, but you can't force them to listen, so whether they're muted or not, so I think it's important for kids to interact. And and so in my classes, by the way, the thing that's interesting that I did that worked out, and I don't want to say that I had the perfect solution, but I did have a solution. Last spring when this started, my students, of course, were on Zoom calls like all the other students. But what I did is put them in charge of the Zoom call. And so nobody was muted, and they all got to talk to each other. And then they all showed up. Everybody wanted to be there because everybody wanted to talk to everybody else. I'll tell you, it worked.
And you had one child that was in charge of the Zoom call?
No, so there's 5 editors, and the 5 editors were in charge, and they took turns, and then they gave turns to other kids, and they organized it.
This is really beautiful.
It worked, and they're doing it this fall too, by the way. So same thing.
They continue it. It's really amazing. But what you do, let's say, but also there's a lack of communication. There's a lack of kids really all day by the computer. It's very difficult for many kids. What else as parents we can do to somehow compensate on it? Or
so yeah, if they have to sit in front of a computer all day, that's not good. So I think it's important for them to get outside and to interact, do some kind of sports, do some kind of exercise. Exercise has a huge impact on the brain. And if they sit all day and just listen to Zoom calls, they're not exercising. So that's one thing that's really important for them to do. And even if they're living in a city like New York City, you can take a walk down the street, you can go to Central Park. There's a lot of other things you can do besides just feeling sorry for yourself.
Exactly.
And so that's one thing I would do. And then I would also let them do things like help prepare the meal. They can go shopping, they can buy the food that they think is exciting, they can make dinner, might taste horrible, but at least they're trying. Maybe next time will taste better. They can learn to make soup, chicken soup or whatever. And I would give them an opportunity for responsibility in the family, because when they have a sense of responsibility, they feel good about themselves.
100%. And we spoke about how he was incredible teacher, mother, but also incredible grandmother. Thank God, all the grandchildren love you, adore you, and they all had bar mitzvahs. They're all very proud Jews. And I wanted to speak to you. What's for you personally Jewish heritage? I know your grandfather was Rabbi Avram Subinsky, or a rabbi who actually left Russia, left the communist because of the communism, because he wanted to be a proud Jew, and he came to America, a place where he can be free. What's for you today, Judaism, the heritage, and how he was able to bring this love to your kids and to your children, so they all had bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvah? And
so, I think the influence of the parent is really very important. And I didn't preach a lot. I didn't try to tell them what to do. I told them stories. And I told them stories about my grandfather from Novosibirsk. I told them stories about how difficult it was for them to come, to the United States. Stories about my mother and, the difficulties she had, and how we were all really proud and happy to be here in America. And it wasn't easy. They had to leave a lot of things when they left. And so it's interesting what an impact stories have on children. And it's also, when I wrote the book, How to Raise Successful People. It's all full of stories. And
Exactly.
what's interesting about that is people will stop me on the street and they'll say, "Oh, I just love that Target story," and they remember the stories. But so my children also remembered the stories. And when they were interacting with my mother, they would talk to her about the stories and what it was like, to live in Siberia in the winter and, how difficult it was. And then my father experienced, unfortunately, a lot of pogroms in the Ukraine, but he talked about them. And I talked about them, and so when they came of age, they decided to have bat mitzvah. The stories played a very important role, because I said to them, you don't have to have a bat mitzvah. You decide what you want to do. It's up to you. And by giving them choice, and then also remembering their heritage and their grandfather, who was a rabbi, and all the members of the family, they picked it on their own. And when you pick something on your own, it becomes yours. When your parents force you to do it, you're doing it because they force you, but it's theirs. And so that is, I think, that's what parents need to remember.
It's really beautiful, and I need to say that as all your grandchildren and granddaughters, that they all did bar mitzvahs, and they read it so well, the Torah reading, and they were so proud, and they did it really incredibly. And you said about the stories. In the Torah, it doesn't say teach your kid. It doesn't say so. It says v'higata lebincha. Tell the story of the exile of Egypt to your son. This is what it says. Tell them the story. So we really need to tell them the story. Moment education in the form of story, of excitement, something that excites us first of all. Then we can bring it to them. And this is really beautiful how you do it. And even when your daughters, they write about you in the introduction to the book, they not only became extremely successful, if everyone in her field extraordinary, but they love you so much. They adore you. You was able to teach them, to educate them, but with so much love. And I know that so many parents, they have the challenge because from one side, they want the kids to do properly, but then where's to find the balance between the strictness and the love?
You have to trust your children. You have to trust that they have your DNA, that they are going to be wonderful, and just like you're a good person and that you have good goals, they too are going to be good. And if you give them that opportunity, they will want to do it much more than if you tell them what to do all the time. The tiger parent it starts in a place where you're trying to help your kids, but it is counterproductive. What it does is it disenables them because they feel they can't do anything without your help. So you don't want to have a tiger parent mentality. You want to have a mentality where you believe in them, even if they do it wrong to start. And I cannot tell you all the wrong things that, my kids did when they were growing up, lots of them. And so, eventually they got it right. But that's what school's all about. If you go to school and you know everything before you go to school, why go to school?
Exactly.
You just don't need school, right?
But the most important is how you show them the wrong mistake. And here was the place where many people how you show the kid that he mistaken without damaging his confidence.
That's right. Well, they usually know if it's not good, but and you don't want to rub it in. So you see what you can do to help them achieve their dreams or help them do whatever. And the dreams can be, when they're little, the dreams are very simple, right? So, little kids, little problems, their number one dream is to go to Target and buy all the toys, right? You can achieve that. When they get to be 20, their dreams are a little bit too difficult to accomplish, for you at least, or for them.
This is correct. So coming back to coming back now to what we just spoke, there's another thing I think that's very challenging in our times. I remember a story from the Torah that I love very much, but it's very strange. It's one of the strangest stories in the Torah. It's about a prophet, Bilam, non-Jew, that tried to curse the Jewish nation. He was a very big prophet, and he tried to do it several times, and he was unsuccessful. And he had a donkey, and the donkey stopped 3 times on the way and didn't brought him to the place where he was supposed to curse the Jewish nation. So what he did, he was beating the donkey 1 time, 2nd time, 3rd time, and then the donkey suddenly started to speak. Miracle. And the donkey says, Bilam, why are you beating me? You know me. I never was like this, so maybe I have a reason. And then suddenly God opened his eyes and he saw an angel. The angel of death was standing next to the donkey, and this is what was blocking it. So there's a very famous question. Never in the Torah we don't see that animals speak, and why should such a miracle happen? And there's a beautiful explanation of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's a metaphorical explanation about our kids. So the donkey in this story, it's our teens. Because our teens are stubborn, and they're sometimes very stubborn. And suddenly you see that your teen stopped doing what he was doing as a child. 1 time he stops, 2nd time he stops, 3rd time he stops. And then what you do? You scream on him, you beat him, you do whatever you can. 1 time, 2nd time, 3rd time. And then the donkey suddenly stopped to speak. And what he says, you know me when I was a child. I was an amazing child. I was a good kid. I didn't change because I became a bad kid, but something blocked me. There's an angel of death. There's a pain that blocks me, that stops me, that doesn't allow me to continue and achieve my dreams. So instead of beating me 1 time, 2nd time, 3rd time, listen to my pain, and then you will be able to overcome it together. I love this story very much, and I want to ask you, listening is really one of the biggest challenges. To really listen, not what you want, but really what the kid needs. There's any secrets that you can share with us on listening?
So one thing you should always be, or try hard to be, is an active, positive listener. That means you actually listen without giving advice. I know this is hard, but just listen, because usually kids just want to be heard. And then by listening, they can help, and by voicing it, you can help them resolve this issue themselves. And if you just think about therapy, for which people pay hundreds of dollars per hour, the therapist, he is just an active listener. They don't tell you how to solve your problem. They listen while you verbalize how you are going to solve the problem. And so as a parent, while it's hard, and so I agree with you, what you should just do is listen and see if they somehow cannot come up with a solution on their own, or if they will ask you for help. When you're asked for help, that's a different story. Then you can do something. But if you're not asked, just stepping in and trampling all over them, that is not a good thing.
This is a great advice.
Listening is the key. So that's a great story that you told.
Yes, it is beautiful. And it says in the Torah, before you're criticizing anybody, try to see the same situation from your child's perspective.
Try to see it from their perspective and try not to condemn. Try to see it from their perspective. See what you can do to help them come up with a solution, as opposed to you coming up with a solution and telling them what to do. Collaborate. That's the C in the trick. Collaborate on rules. Collaborate on solutions. Collaborate. You're a partner. That's how good businesses function, on collaboration. They're teams of people working together to solve a problem. So you're just training your child for the future and for collaborating with their peers when they get older.
This is really beautiful. So Esther, I know that you're a person that always, as I said before, create a situation. You're always creating. You're always in the. What's your plans now after? I know that we spoke about how to raise successful people. Also your first book was Munches in Education. What are you working now? What's the projects?
So the main thing I'm working on now is Tract, which I already told you about, but there's a second project that I'm working on. It's called Waj International, WOJ International, and it is engineering and tech schools that will compete on the university level. And right now, our partner for this school is UC Berkeley.
Wow.
So
for high schools or for which schools?
For college.
For colleges.
You'll be able to get a college degree, and it'll be certified by UC Berkeley in 3 years, engineering and tech. And it's based on the same pedagogy I used in my high school program, peer-to-peer project-based learning. And you'll read more about it. The information is going to be coming out soon. You can actually.
What's the website again, if you can repeat?
Waj International. It's WOJIT. IT stands for international. It's brand new, so there might not be a lot of information about it. There was a UC Berkeley news release that came out last week. So it's pretty new. So that's what I'm working on together with Tract. And so I'm trying to help repair the world, let's say, isn't it? Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam. This is really beautiful. This is really, I wanted, first of all, to thank you, Esther. For me personally, you are a source of inspiration all the time. And also source of also of a positive energy. You know, I wish it all, you know, not always by religious people, they have so much happiness, and so as I see by you, you have so much always happiness and positive energy and solution for everything. And I'm sure that your grandfather, Rabbi Abraham, has a lot of, as we say, nachas up in heaven, that he see how his daughter continued the path of Tikkun Olam, and his granddaughters and great-grandchildren continue this way of believing in people, believing in ourselves, bringing really listening and bringing really light to every person in his unique mission, in his unique path. I want to remind again about the Tract app that we just discussed today, and I want to invite everybody that listen to us. If you have your teens, what ages for Tract is? For what ages, Esther?
8 plus, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 15, 16.
From 8 to 15, you're able to be a member on Tract, and we have only for the people from our community, that everybody who watch our show, you have a special voice special. I just put it here. If you will go to tract.app, TRACT.app, and instead of paying money, you can get 1 year for free for your kids. So you're having now another thing to do during the pandemic, something meaningful, voice special. And also those who above 14 and 15 able to join and become creators. This is one of the things that the Torah calls everyone to become a creator and to create. And this is so beautiful. So, and I also want to say, everybody who wants to speak to Esther and to ask questions, Dr. Wojcicki is going to be a guest speaker at the open house of our, we're going to have on Zoom a special, December 9, a special open house for East Academy of Science and Technology of our high school for grades 9 to 12. We're going to speak more about teens, and Esther going to inspire us and all the parents, and will be a possibility on Zoom. It will be on Zoom also to ask questions. So I invite you all to join this conversation with Dr. Wojcicki and our open house of East Academy of Science and Technology on December 9. So Esther, I want to thank you again and to ask you, if you can, what's your message for our parents, for the students, whoever who watch us now?
So my message is really to believe in yourself and to always, the first person that you have to forgive when things don't go the way you want them to go is yourself. And take care of yourself, and then you can take care of your family and your children. It's kind of like the allegory that they have in the airplane. First put on your oxygen mask and then put it on your child. Because if you aren't okay, they aren't okay. So that's my message.
This is really beautiful. And and I remember when the Baal Shem Tov, a great Hasidic master, he was asked once, what is hell? Hell from the stories with fire and everything. And he said, every person has an image above. It's how God see you, your potential, your powers, everything what you was created for. And then you have the image above. What you do with it? Very often the image below is a very pale copy of the image above. So he says, after 120 years, when your soul coming up, and God shows you here what you did, here what your image above, here what you could do, and here what you did with it. And the person see it, and there's no legs, there's no hands, and this shame, this is hell. This is what the Baal Shem Tov says. And we know that sin in Hebrew, it's not sin to do something bad, it's to miss out. Chet in Hebrew, lachti, to miss out opportunities. So the most important for us, I think that even these challenging times is opportunity for us to use, to give more attention and more belief in our kids.
It's opportunity for us to think about how society was organized, how schools were organized, and to improve upon what there was before, to make it better.
100%.
And this is an opportunity for all of us.
Thank you. And everyone, and every time when I see you, when I read your articles or something, you always remind me about the image above, always about the possibility that what you can do much more. And I want to thank you really very much for, first of all, this amazing conversation and for everything that you do over the globe to inspire millions of people. So thank you so much. We had with us Dr. Esther Wojcicki, incredible educator. And as we say in Yiddish, a mensch.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to have been here with everyone.
Thank you so much, and thank you from everybody. And last question, people asking me here, if you have any online classes that possible to listen to you from other countries, or if there's any.
So I have a website, another website. It's called wajway.com, WOJWAY.com. And I publish a blog every week. And then if you want to contact me, you could contact me at Waj, WOJ, at Tract.app. And so I'm going to come out with more I think I'm going to do a podcast. So
we are looking forward. We are looking forward. Definitely.
I don't know when it's coming, but it will be. It's in the future.
We're very excited about this already. Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you so much again. And like we had the Queen Esther in the history of Purim that saved the world. So Esther has a very big power, and you have so much power. And may God always help you to continue to use this power to enlighten the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, dear friends, we just had with us today Dr. Esther Wojcicki, a world-renowned educator, incredible person. So please listen to this message that she's changing the world, and we can use it in our homes, in our families, and all be safe, and we'll see you on our next show. Thank you so much.